There is a small plastic box in your home that has never once lied to you because you have never once asked it anything. It sits near a window or behind a television, blinking a slow blue light, and it handles every single thing you do online, every message, every search, every video, every login, every late-night question you would never say out loud. And here is the part almost nobody thinks about. That box does not work for you. It was very likely mailed to you by your internet provider. It runs firmware you cannot read. It accepts remote commands you never approved, and it keeps a running account of your life that is far more detailed than you would ever guess. You have been told for years that the little padlock icon in your browser means you are protected. That padlock is real. It is also much smaller than you think. Let me show you exactly what it covers, what it does not, and what your router is quietly handing over while you sleep. Start with the thing everyone gets wrong about encryption. When you connect to a website over HTTPS, the contents of that connection are scrambled. Nobody in the middle can read the page you loaded, the words you typed into a form, the password you entered, or the video you watched. That much is true, and it matters enormously. But encryption hides the letter, not the envelope. Your provider still needs to know where to deliver the traffic, which means somebody in the middle always knows who you are talking to. And it turns out that knowing who you talk to, when you talk to them, and how often, is almost as revealing as reading the words themselves. The leak starts before the encryption ever begins. Before your device can load anything, it has to translate a human name into a machine address. You type a name, your device asks a directory service which numeric address that name lives at, and only then does the connection begin. That lookup is the first thing that happens, and for most people, it is sent in plain text to a server chosen by their internet provider. Not scrambled, not hidden, just a small time-stamped note that says, "This household is now asking for this specific place." Every app on your phone does it. Every smart device in your house does it. Your television does it while you are not in the room. And because it happens before encryption, the padlock never gets a chance to protect it. Then there is the second leak, and this one is stranger because it happens inside the encrypted connection itself. When your device begins a secure handshake with a server, it has to tell that server which site it wants, because one machine often hosts hundreds of different sites. For most of the history of the modern web, that name was sent in the clear during the opening moments of the handshake, before the encrypted channel was fully established. So even if you fixed your directory lookups, the name of the site was still readable in the first fraction of a second of the conversation. There is now a fix for this, a mechanism that encrypts that part of the greeting, but it depends on support from both your browser and the server, and adoption is still uneven. In a great many connections you make today, the destination name is still visible to anyone sitting on the wire. And even if both of those leaks were sealed shut tomorrow, a third one would remain, and it cannot be fixed with any protocol at all. Traffic has shape. Every connection you make has a destination address, a size, a duration, and a rhythm. Streaming a film looks nothing like sending an email. A video call has a distinctive, continuous two-way pattern that no amount of encryption disguises. Large services occupy known ranges of addresses, and so an observer who cannot read a single word of your traffic can still say, with real confidence, that this household streamed for 3 hours, made a 40-minute video call at 9 in the evening, uploaded something large at midnight, and had a burst of activity at 4 in the morning that lasted 11 minutes. Researchers have shown repeatedly that traffic patterns alone can identify which specific pages a person is loading on a known site, and which specific device in a home is doing the talking. Now stack those 3 streams together and ask what they add up to. Not one dramatic secret, something worse, a pattern. The first request of the morning tells someone when you wake up. Its absence tells them when you are away. Which services appear tells them what you use, what you subscribe to, who you bank with, which country your family is in. Repeated lookups to a specific medical service tell them something you have told almost no one. Sudden new activity around a legal service, a dating service, a job site, a pharmacy, a clinic, a support line. Each of these is a fact about your life, delivered with a timestamp, without a single word of your traffic ever being read. Your provider does not need to read your messages. Your provider only needs your calendar of intentions. Here is where it stops being theoretical. In the United States, rules that would have required internet providers to get your permission before selling this kind of information were repealed in 2017, before they ever took effect. In 2021, the Federal Trade Commission published a study of the largest American internet providers and found that they collect far more data about their subscribers than those subscribers expect, combine it with other information, group people into categories that touch on sensitive characteristics, and make opting out difficult and, in some cases, largely meaningless. Elsewhere, the shape is different, but the volume is not. Across much of Europe, providers are required to retain connection records for a period of time so that authorities can request them later, and courts have spent a decade fighting over how broad that retention is allowed to be. In some countries, retention is not a compromise between privacy and policing at all. It is simply an obligation, with equipment installed on provider networks specifically to make the traffic inspectable. The details vary by border. The underlying fact does not. Somebody, somewhere, is keeping a record of every place your household reaches out to, and the disagreement is only about how long they get to hold it and who gets to ask for it. Which brings us back to the box itself, because so far I have been describing the wire. The router is its own problem. If your provider gave you that router, and most people are using exactly that, then it very likely supports a remote management standard that has been built into consumer equipment for over 20 years. The purpose is legitimate and even helpful. It lets a provider push firmware updates, fix configuration remotely, and diagnose faults without sending an engineer to your door. But look at what the capability actually is. A device inside your home, sitting in front of all your traffic, that accepts configuration changes from outside over a channel you did not set up and cannot inspect. Security researchers have repeatedly found flaws in the way that channel is implemented, and there have been real-world cases where weaknesses in provider-managed routers were exploited at scale, knocking hundreds of thousands of households offline in a single incident. The point is not that your provider is spying through it. The point is that the door exists, it is not yours, and you have no way of knowing who has walked through it. Then there is the firmware. Consumer routers run software that most people never update, because most people have no reason to think of a router as a computer. It is. It is a computer with an operating system, with libraries that were current when the model was designed, and with a support window that usually ends years before the hardware stops working. When that window closes, known flaws simply stay open forever. A router in a home for 6 years is often running software with publicly documented vulnerabilities that will never be patched because nobody is being paid to patch them. And routers have become a favorite target precisely because of this. Compromised home routers have been assembled into large networks used to relay other people's traffic, to hide the origin of attacks, and to quietly sit in position on residential connections for long periods. The router also talks to its maker. Many consumer models ship with cloud features enabled by default. The phone app that lets you manage the network from anywhere, the parental controls, the security add-on, the speed testing. Each of those requires the router to report to a server. That report can include the list of devices connected to your network, their names, their hardware identifiers, connection times and durations, bandwidth usage, and in some cases, summaries of the sites being reached. Read the privacy policy of your own router's app sometime. You will usually find a list of exactly what is collected, and a paragraph about sharing with partners and affiliates that is deliberately broad. Your washing machine, your doorbell, your television, your child's tablet, and your work laptop are all named on a list held by a hardware company you have never contacted, and the devices themselves are chatty in ways that follow you outside the house. Every network adapter has a hardware address. Phones now randomize that address when scanning for networks, which helps, but the moment you actually join a network, the real one is often used, and it is stable, and it identifies your specific device. Your phone remembers every network it has ever joined and, depending on settings, may announce them looking for a match, a list of network names that is effectively a travel history. Retail spaces, airports, and transit systems have used this kind of signal for years to count and track movement. Meanwhile, your home network sees the mirror image of the same thing: which devices are present, when they arrive, when they leave, which room they are closest to. The newest wireless standards include the ability to sense motion in a room from disturbances in the signal itself, marketed as a security feature. A network that can tell whether someone is walking through your living room is a remarkable thing to have installed without thinking about it. So, what actually works? Not everything, and I want to be honest about the limits, because the honest version is more useful than a list of miracle fixes. First, encrypt your name lookups. Modern browsers and both major mobile systems support sending those requests over an encrypted channel to a resolver of your choosing, and you can set it once at the operating system level, so it covers every application rather than just your browser. Choose a resolver that publishes a clear policy about logging. Understand what this does and does not buy you. It removes the plainest, easiest stream your provider collects, and it moves your trust from a company that also owns the wire to a company that only sees the lookups. That is a real improvement, but it is a transfer of trust, not an elimination of it. Second, own the box. Buying your own router and putting the provider's equipment into a pass-through mode, or replacing it entirely where your connection allows, removes the remote management channel you did not consent to and gives you a device whose settings are actually yours. Pick a manufacturer with a stated support period, turn on automatic updates if they exist, and check the model's update history before you buy rather than after. If you are comfortable going further, independent open firmware projects give you a router whose behavior you can fully inspect, and which will still receive updates long after a manufacturer would have abandoned it. Third, turn off what you are not using. Go into your router's settings and look for remote administration, cloud account linking, usage reporting, and any analytics option. Change the administrator password because the default is printed in a manual anyone can download. Put your smart devices on a separate guest network so that a compromised bulb or camera cannot see your laptop. And check what your router's companion app is collecting, then decide whether the convenience is worth it. Fourth, understand where a tunnel helps and where it does not. Routing your traffic through an encrypted tunnel does genuinely remove your provider's view of your destinations, and if your provider is the observer you're worried about, that is decisive. But it does not make you invisible. It moves the observation point to whoever runs the tunnel. And it does nothing about the accounts you log into at the other end, which identify you far more precisely than any address ever could. A tunnel is a tool for a specific problem, not a costume. And fifth, the step almost nobody takes, actually look. Most routers will show you a live list of connected devices, and on many models, the addresses they are contacting. Open it, count the devices. If there are more than you can name, find out why. Watch what happens on your network at 3 in the morning when everyone is asleep and everything is still talking. That is the moment this stops being an abstract topic and becomes something you can see with your own eyes in your own home on a screen. None of this makes you invisible, and anyone promising you that is selling something. What it does is change the default. Right now, the default is that a device you did not choose, running software you cannot read, reports on your household to parties you have never met, and you were never asked. Changing that costs an evening and the price of one piece of hardware. The blue light will keep blinking either way. The only real question is whose side it is blinking on. Stay off grid.